Hi everyone, we'll be waiting 2 to 3 minutes before starting the webinar to accommodate for the rest of the attendees who are in the middle of connecting. Welcome everyone. Thanks for joining us and thanks for being part of our community. My name is Valan Kolika and I'll be your host for today. Thank you for your participation and just a few reminders before we start with the presentation. If you have issues viewing the stream at any time during the presentation and are using the web browser version of Teams, please refresh your browser. If you're using the desktop app of Teams, please exit and rejoin. Please note that this webinar is being recorded and will be shared publicly. We will post the recording on our community at aka.ms/security-webinars. Closed captions are available during the live broadcast and you can enable it by clicking on the CC button located at the lower right corner of your screen. During this time, please feel free to ask questions at any time by typing them in the live event Q&A window by clicking on the Ask a Question button. And be aware that any questions you post will be publicly visible. However, if you prefer, you can post your question anonymously by checking the box right below where you enter it. We often get many questions on these webinars, and we will do our best to respond to all of them in real time. In the event if the answer was not provided, or if you may have additional questions post this event, please don't hesitate to raise them on our Azure Security Center forum at aka.ms/ASC community. If you're listening to this after the fact as a recording, that's also a great place to ask a question. Now, we love to hear your feedback on how we can improve these webinars, which you can do so at aka.ms/security-webinar feedback. And while you're there, please join our community by visiting aka.ms/securitycommunity. This is the best way to ensure that you don't miss any future webinars or major announcements. On our community, you can speak directly to our engineering teams that create our security products. You'll be able to influence our product designs and get early access to changes by doing things like participating in private previews, which you can sign up for at aka.ms/security private preview. And while you're there, you can request features, give feedback, review our product roadmaps, attend in-person events, or join webinars like this. We believe that the best way to improve our products is simply by removing any barriers between you and the people that create them. So we hope you'll join us. Please note that our initial plan for today's session was to cover Azure Service Layer Protection, which has been rescheduled for January 7 of next year, and hoping that the communication came across to you beforehand. So in today's session, Adam will guide us through the multi-cloud support using Azure Security Center. Adam Zamri is a program manager with our Azure Security Center team. And without further ado, I will turn it over to him. Adam, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Valon, for all the introduction. So hi, everyone. Great to be here. So today, as Valon mentioned, we'll cover multi-cloud and Azure Security Center. This is basically a feature that was recently released for public preview during Ignite. We'll go over the background and the challenges that led to this capabilities in Azure Security Center, an overview of the solution we offer and the benefits. And then we'll actually have a live demo going through the onboarding across the product and all the benefits. And then also we'll probably have time for Q&A at the end as well. So when we look at addressing the multi-cloud environment and the challenges that come from that, we understand cyber attacks are on the rise across SaaS, IaaS, and PaaS environments. And it's not surprising that you get all this accelerated growth because these cloud environments are experiencing. Attackers are always going to try and target the weakest link, either identities, devices, data, applications, infrastructure, and network in order to gain access to corporate resources. And basically, this brings up the security concerns that we have to take the relevant steps to mitigate these risks. So for example, misconfiguration of services, which is one of the top reasons the cloud service gets breached, or loss of sensitive data, which can not only affect the company and its customers, but also severely hurt the brand and the reputation. For all of these complexities, a lot of time enterprises are multi-cloud by design. That could be from a number of different reasons, either from risk management or a technological need. And from that complication, basically, it even further deepens the challenges for having such a complex environment. Azure Security Center addresses three most urgent security challenges. The first is basically to the rapidly changing workloads and insecure configurations. It's both a strength and also a challenge. And so on the other hand, end users can do much more and are empowered to do much more. But on the other, how can you make sure that the ever-changing services people are using and creating is really up to speed with the security standards and all the best practices you have in your organization? An additional one is the increasingly sophisticated attacks. Wherever you run the workloads, the attackers can keep getting also more sophisticated. You have to secure your public cloud workloads, your hybrid environment, and basically you can have an internet-facing workload that can leave you even more vulnerable if you don't follow best practices. Also, visibility and security and compliance. The number of security alerts and alerting system is reaching out much higher than the number of workflows that can really handle it with the right experience and background to really make sure your environments are protected. Having an end-to-end visibility to security and compliance and staying up to date with the latest attacks is an overwhelming challenge, making it almost impossible to stay up to speed with the world of security. It even gets even more complicated as a cloud environment comprises of different clouds. So Azure Security Center really brings a unified infrastructure security management system to keep up with all of these challenges. It strengthens is to strengthen the security posture of your organization, provide advanced threat protection across your hybrid workloads, either they're in Azure or even on-prem. You can assess your environment, enable you to understand the status of your resources, whether they are secure or not, and also to protect against threats. We can help you assess which are the workloads and also have threat prevention recommendations and detection alerts. Get secure faster. Security Center, everything is done in cloud speed. Because it's natively integrated, deployment of Security Center is easy, and you can also have auto provisioning and protection for your Azure and non-Azure services. Customers often use cloud native security solutions as Security Center is, and they also have the operational needs to have a consolidated inference single pane of glass from all the different security tools from the different cloud solution provider. And the solution we're actually offering in Security Center for multi-cloud is leveraging both of these. So the first, for the strengthening of security posture, is the seamless integration with AWS Security Hub and GCP Security Command Center, which are the native security tools provided by AWS and GCP. And for the protection against threat, we're leveraging Azure Arc, which I will extend a bit more during the presentation. So just to understand a bit of background on the people joining us today, we'd just like to understand if you're familiar with the multi-cloud support in ASC, and what is your current stage? Is it already connected for production accounts, test accounts, haven't connected yet, but they're planning to? Basically, to reach out, I would be happy you go and log in to paulev.com/AdamZ782 and fill up your answers. Just give it another minute or two. You can choose just to really understand what's the current stage of your enabling for multi-cloud today. You can connect either from your web browser or for your mobile phone.
Yeah, have posted also the link on the IM just for the convenience.
Great, thank you. Yeah, I see the results coming in. Great. It'll be really interesting to see people already familiar with the integration, coming here to learn as well. Great, so I'll give it a few more seconds and then we'll see a bit about the results. Great, so I see. Okay, great. So I see there's a lot of interest of seeking additional information before making this decision. So that's a great opportunity for you to be in this webinar. We'll go over extensively the capabilities, also have these in the onboarding look. Haven't connected you, but onboarded. Great, not planning as well. I hope you'll learn today as well, maybe to think, how can this benefit for your organization anyway? Great, so a bit about, I will focus now on how is this helping for the strengthening of your multi-cloud security posture, and then I'll go over the benefits for leveraging Azure Arc for the threat protection as well. So what we actually have is ASC today continually assesses the security state of your cloud, either virtual machines, network, apps, and data services. Also monitors server workloads running in other clouds and on-premise. And in the multi-cloud capabilities, it helps you visualize your security state and quickly get insights on your configured security controls. The Azure Secure Score is basically the core of the Security Center posture management. It provides insight on how is your current state and also provides recommendation of which actions to take and how to prioritize your steps to improve your posture. The scoring system offers the best practices, guidance, and recommendation that can really help you prevent common misconfigurations, such as exposure of sensitive resources, lack of encryption, uninstalled updates, or even a missing firewall for your cloud workloads. Today, you can use Azure Security Center to receive recommendations not only from Microsoft, but also from other security solutions, such as the native security solutions by AWS and GCP. For AWS, it's the AWS Security Hub, and for GCP, it's the Google Cloud Security Command Center. You have a simple onboarding flow that really helps you connect these existing solutions to have a single bird's view across different environments. Also have unified reports and leveraging all of the management capabilities from ASC for other clouds. So if I'll elaborate a bit about this, is basically the integration for Security Command Center and Security Hub, together with the Azure resources we already provide today, really helps you have a secure score that covers all the environments, asset management. We provide one single inventory view, showing you all the resources we discovered as part of the security recommendations we received from these products. You can also get from part of the compliance. We are providing the CIS standard showing up in ASC, and also all of the management capabilities. You can use the automation that's already been used for Azure resources today, and also extend it using the same place, the same tooling for multi-cloud SIM integration and also export. Just having one management and one view across the platforms. So let's talk a bit about Azure Arc. Azure Arc is a capability that was announced about a year ago at Ignite 2019 for public preview for servers, and it just GA'd for Azure Arc for servers. Basically, what it does is to bring management capabilities in Azure for resources residing outside of Azure. That can be either for servers, as we can see in the beginning, and I'll show also the benefits that comes from that, data services, and also for Kubernetes. Bringing that management capabilities help you have the single pane of glass, the single management, and less friction of managing workloads across clouds. So what are the key benefits having from Azure Arc? So first of all, the asset and organization inventory, you can really manage these resources for servers with Azure tags. You can have, we could also show how we're using that in this integration. You have an Azure resource. Basically, it's identified for all the management, for all the different capabilities in Azure. You can also have role-based access control. You can decide who can view any details, any logs for this server, either from its Azure or in AWS, for example. And also extension installation. For example, MMA, the log analytics agent, different extensions. You can also deploy them using Azure policy at a greater scale, and having different policies on that as well. And that will provide you the single control plane for any resources anywhere. So really, when we bring in servers in Google Cloud and in AWS, combined with Azure Arc into Azure Security Center, we're providing a capability almost matching to the ones we have today for Azure. We have the policies you can run. You can have ingest policies. You can have asset management showing the servers also from Azure, AWS, and GCP. Secure Score, the same KPI we mentioned before, that can be used. Can also be used with Azure Arc servers. Server protection, we also had a webinar earlier this week about how the server protection really can be across cloud, adaptive application control, threat detection. For example, the Microsoft Defender for endpoints can also be leveraged for servers running in AWS and GCP and Azure, and vulnerability assessment. And the same management capabilities also can be provided here as automation, SIM integration, and export. Basically, part of this integration is identifying the AWS EC2 instances. We scan the environment, we onboard your AWS account, and for each AWS EC2 that we discover, we use AWS System Manager. With that, we can onboard them to Azure Arc And basically, from that moment on, it resides and behaves very similar to an Azure VM. So let's go and show how does it look in the portal. I will go through a few scenarios we have. Great. So as you can see, this is the Azure Security Center portal. This is also a new design we just released in the Ignite. And as you can see, this is for managing accounts in Azure, AWS, and GCP. So you can see here we have how many AWS accounts I have connected, how many GCP projects I have connected using the onboarding we provide. And as part of our navigation view, you can see here we have the cloud connectors, which is in public preview. Once I go into the cloud connectors view, I will be able to see the different onboarded accounts in either AWS or GCP. I can see which account has been onboarded, which organization has been onboarded, and to which subscription. Basically, what we do is we relate the onboarded account into an existing Azure subscription. And also the valid of the health of the connector. So let's go and show how does an onboarding of AWS account looks like. It's pretty simple. Part of it also is done in the Azure portal, but also some of it is done in AWS. So first of all, I will name the AWS connector. Second, I will choose which subscription. It can be multiple. I'm just in the scope of a single one for the demo purposes. And I choose to use the ASC for my current subscription. What we do is we ask for the AWS authentication. And basically, you provide these different parameters in the AWS console and create a service role. We assume that role in order to get access for the different permissions. One permission we ask is for access to AWS Security Hub, just for reading Security Hub. The second and third are basically to discover the EC2 instances in your account. And the third is basically to onboard them and run the onboarding for Azure Arc. So once you input these different parameters into AWS, you can create a role and insert the ARN here. Once we're done with that, we go to the Azure R Configuration. Since we discover EC2 instances, they are automatically and continuously scanned and onboarded to Azure with Azure Arc. And since these are basically Azure resources, so they will be related to a specific subscription. That's the one you chose before. And you can choose the resource group which they will show in. The region is only for where the metadata of that server will be shown. An additional configuration needed is the authentication of a service principal. Basically, the service principal is meant for the at-scale onboarding of Azure Arc machines. It's a simple command to run through the Azure portal. And once you run that, you get two different parameters. You get an ID and you get a secret key. The machines are behind the proxy server, so you can also provide the proxy server URL as well. Once I entered all of these configurations, I can see here an overview of the details I entered. Basically, you can see the name, the ARN, and also, as you can see, as part of our service, we help you with the management. And since these are Azure resources, we will add automatically, as part of the onboarding, Azure tags on these Arc machines. One of the AWS account, the EC2 instance ID, and which region does it reside in the AWS. So this is a part of the onboarding for AWS. For GCP, we integrate with the GCP Security Command Center. That is performed in an organization level. You might have different projects in one organization, and you can onboard all of them into here. So I also do, for example, a different name. So let's call it GCP 114. And also you choose to which subscription will all of the provided from the GCP Security Command Center, and where will they be shown? We provide the organization ID and the GCP private key file. That's basically a file that contains the different authentication details in order to onboard to GCP. We only extract the details needed for us to onboard. It's secured, stored safely, and once we have that, we can also onboard the GCP Security Command Center. So from the moment the accounts are onboarded, what happens is first of all, for AWS, we scan the EC2 instances. If it doesn't have Arc installed, we install Arc. And also start retrieving the security findings from AWS Security Hub and Security Command Center. As you can see here, so I get here the different details as I shown before. And let's show all the benefits you get and basically how does this connect seamlessly to the current capabilities of Azure Security Center. So first, I can go to the regulatory compliance view. As you can see here, I have the different security standards provided built in from ASC. And I also have here the GCP SIS standard that was provided from the Security Command Center from this integration and the AWS SIS. What you can see here, for example, if I go to networking and I see these are all for the AWS SIS standard, I can go and I see the assessments as I can see for today for Azure Security Center, Azure resources. Once I go into here, I see the description. I'm directed to the correct remediation step on how to resolve this in AWS. And I also get details about the specific resources in question. This is a security group, for example, that basically shouldn't allow ingress from 002 with port 22. I can see which account did it derive from, which region that this been discovered in the AWS Security Hub, what is the type of it, and which subscription was this onboarded to. If I go inside the resource itself, it has a representation here in Azure. This could be any past resources as well. I can see the account, all the details before, and which other recommendations basically does this appear in. So this is what we get for the security command for the regulatory compliance in ASC. Now let's go and see how does this affect our secure score. So as we said, we have ASC Secure Score, which is now a KPI provided for Azure, AWS, and GCP. So if I look up here for AWS recommendations, so you can see here I have different AWS. They're currently in preview, which means they are not affecting your secure score from the first moment. And they will be for you to evaluate and decide on how you would like to treat these recommendations. These are provided, so all the recommendations are mapped into the correct secure score control. So will allow you to understand how protected are you for each attack surface. As you can see here, we have also a recommendation that AWS Security Hub should be enabled for every region in your AWS account. Basically, we want you to be secured in all the available regions and leverage that into Security Center. So this is for the regular resources we get from the security tools in AWS and GCP. But I've also mentioned Arc. So as you can see here, I have here the remediate vulnerabilities control. And this basically is to discover vulnerability assessments on VMs. This was provided until recently for Azure VMs only. But now with the capability of Azure Arc to have extensions installed and more similarities to being in Azure resources, so you can see I have here an EC2 resource that has different different vulnerabilities discovered by our service. And I can see and remediate these accordingly. I can see additional details and really see for Azure VMs and Azure Arc machines in a single recommendation. And now let's go and show the inventory. What we spoke about, the asset management. So as you can see here, I have AWS account, the GCP resources, the different projects that were covered from Security Command Center, Azure VMs, all in a single pane of glass in a single view. And what this has also provided me is I can look up and filter by which resource am I interested to understand the security posture. So for example, I can go and look up a filter by tag. And as we mentioned before, the Azure Arc machines are automatically onboarded with Azure tags from the service. So I can see here, and if I have different accounts onboarded, I can go and look for the specific machines that derive from an AWS account that I want to see. These are Azure Arc servers that have the log analytics agent either uninstalled, as you can see here, or installed, and that means it's getting Microsoft Defender for endpoints if you have Azure Defender on for servers, and also different recommendations. For example, endpoint protection is missing, and all of these capabilities also for Azure VMs for basically servers residing outside of Azure. So basically also you have the threat protection. As you can see here, I have a security alert for an example. I have it on an EC2 instance, a suspicious authentication activity. I can see here the tags that we mentioned before. It's on AWS, and this is the AWS account that it came from. So if I would like to investigate and understand more about this machine, I can go and view the machine itself. So you can see here, you can see all these tags were automatically onboarded. I can see additional details about the machines. I can manage the control for this server, the way it's shown in Azure. I can use the policies. One of the beautiful things of having Azure Arc is that you get out of the box ability to run in-guest policies, meaning you can also create your own custom policies to check for example, different security configurations in the machines, for example, any registry key, if a specific application is running or not. And all of these can be used using the guest configuration policies for Azure Arc machines. Also, logs can be viewed as part of the log view, and you can see here the heartbeat. You can see that, and also manage using the role-based access control for that. When we go to Security Center back, you can see here the overview. So I've mentioned a few of the things before, as also one thing that's worth mentioning is you get a lot of the management capabilities. For example, automation or continuous export. You can use that as the same way you use for recommendations today. You can decide to have a trigger of an automation that every recommendation from AWS will be sent to a specific owner, and using one place to manage all of your automations and also all of your information. So this is covered basically the show and benefits of how do you onboard the AWS connectors and the GCP connector, and how does this basically integrate into all the capabilities we have in Security Center. So we do get a few questions that I thought maybe this would be a great opportunity to maybe address them. So a few questions that were frequently asked. How can I onboard several accounts? So this capability of onboarding an account, either for GCP or AWS, into ASC, that's also provided by API. You can use an API for onboarding that as well. For AWS, what we also recommend is that if you have different AWS accounts, you can configure them to send all of the configurations, all of their security findings into one master account. And once you onboard this master account into Azure Security Center, you will see the recommendations all across your AWS accounts. So also additional configurations, what really needs to be configured in AWS and GCP. So for AWS, we use the AWS System Manager. That means that that comes with an agent that needs to be onboarded. It comes built in with several of the distros, and that's all shown and explained in our documentation and provide what exactly is needed. You also need to enable Security Hub to get the recommendations. You can enable it in the different regions. We scan all the regions and retrieve whatever we can find. For Security Command Center in GCP, you need to enable the Security Command Center, which is in an organization level. And of course, for the Azure Arc servers, once they are onboarded, you can install the Log Analytics agent either by quick fix. We have a recommendation for that in Security Center, or even using a policy to onboard them at scale. Sometimes the question comes, can I onboard VMs from environments that are not AWS and GCP? So the answer is definitely yes. This is basically can be onboarded from any other cloud and can be an on-premises machine. What the feature we offer today is really to help you automate that process for AWS. You can we scan the EC2 instances for you. We do the overhead of managing that. So we have another poll. You can use the same link as before, and basically we would be happy to see which would be the most valuable capabilities from what you've seen today of connecting the AWS and GCP accounts to ASC. Will it be the single secure score control? Will it be the single asset management? Same policies you can do across different providers? Or the server protection capabilities that was also covered earlier this week? So I'll give that another minute or two, and then we can review that later. Great, so I see the results have started to drive in. We have a fight here a bit about the same policies across different cloud providers. So maybe I'll elaborate a bit even more about that. So as I mentioned, you can have guest configuration policies. These are policies that look for configurations inside the machine, and that can be done across any Azure Arc server, either in Azure, AWS, GCP, or any other environment. You can use the same policy all across. There's also a possibility of creating your own custom policies for that. I see the single asset management capability across clouds. That's interesting. And the single secure score across different cloud providers. Very interesting. Great. So now I would like to actually bring the floor maybe back to whatever you're interested in hearing. You can also input now any questions you have. I know you might have entered some specific questions in the chat, in the Teams, in the Q&A there, but I will also be happy to elaborate a bit more on anything that you might be interested or understanding even deeper as part of this as well. Answer any question, and I'll be happy to answer. The floor is yours. In the meantime, I just want to mention that the support for multi-cloud is for subscriptions with the Azure Defender on. The capabilities of getting, for example, the Qualys VA, the vulnerability assessment, and the different capabilities of just onboarding them. That's a premium feature, and that's basically also only for standard subscription. No additional cost for just onboarding the AWS and GCP recommendations into Security Center. Okay, so there's an NDA roadmap of coming features. So basically, I am not sure of who exactly asked that question. So yes, we do have a roadmap coming of additional features. That's something that can't be covered in this session. I would be happy you can contact me I'll share my email over the chat later.
Another good way to get access to that for folks is to join our private preview group, which we gave a link out to earlier, and is also on our aka.ms/security community page. So if you're interested in NDA material.
Thank you for that. A has been uploaded. Integrate vulnerability. Okay, so an additional question I see here is I'm interested in possibilities to integrate other vulnerability management solutions. So that's interesting. Today, the integration for Qualys is the one supported for Azure Arc servers and other clouds. It is currently so can Tenable also be connected as Qualys. Basically, you can also onboard different vulnerability assessment for Arc. It's only supported today for Azure VMs, but might be also for in the future.
Yes, to elaborate on that. So currently, the embedded vulnerability scanner, which is powered by Qualys, is the one that is supported with Azure Arc machines.
Thank you, Aviv. Great. Another question is, how does this compare with the cloud app security? Typical differentiators to select use cases for either of both. Great. So basically, also Microsoft Cloud App Security has an integration with AWS and GCP. The use cases are a bit different. I would say for Azure Security Center, it's really for a lot of Azure Security Center users that are invested in using the Azure Security Center capabilities and management, the export, the automation, to gain from the Secure Score, which is only provided in the Azure Security Center side. In MCAS, it's a bit different. It's shown in a higher level, and it's more for getting a higher level of visibility across the different environments. So I also see a question here, will agent push to the AWS and GCP VM? So Azure Arc is what we onboard for AWS automatically. GCP can also be onboarded separately. The log analytics agent, which is the main agent we use in Security Center, that can be pushed very easily. We have a recommendation in Security Center with a quick fix that can be onboarded from the portal. You can also use it at scale using an Azure policy. I see here another, can you go through the licenses required? So there has been a change, basically, if we had before a free tier and a standard tier. And now it's basically Azure Defender on or off. So for this onboarding of generally, you need any Azure Defender bundle available. But for the gating capabilities for Azure Arc servers, that's only for Azure Defender for servers. A table that compares the CSPM features of MCAS and ASC. So that's an interesting one. We'll be happy to share that with the community later on. So also a Qualys license included in the Azure Defender. How does it affect the security recommendations for vulnerability scan? So the Qualys license isn't included once you have Azure Defender for servers on. There is no additional cost for that. And it affects the security recommendation for the vulnerability assessment secure score control. If you have a server that has been onboarded to Qualys and has a vulnerability solution installed, so that will also be shown as unhealthy or unhealthy resources for the vulnerabilities that were found.
Adding also to that, whether vulnerabilities are found on the VMs that were provisioned with the vulnerability scanner, that will also affect the secure score if there are vulnerabilities found on the VM.
Thank you for that. Great. So I see no more new questions coming in. Also, in general, we'll be happy to understand if you have anything you would like to ask, suggest, we would add to the ASC multi-cloud story. I know people asked here about the roadmap. Also would be interesting to get your feedback on what would you expect, what do you think could be improved, missing, or interested to hear on further. So I'll give this another minute or two. Okay, that can be also responded afterwards. So just to summarize, from my side, so basically we did go over the challenges of having the multi-cloud environment, how Azure Security Center is addressing that challenge of integrating with the native security tools from GCP and AWS and integrating that seamlessly into the Azure Security Center capabilities, and also helping you to automatically onboard AWS EC2 instances for them to get the threat protection and security posture capabilities as well. Again, I would be happy to follow up with anyone over email on additional questions, or if there were any other questions in the Q&A, also I'll be happy to go over that as well.
Thank you, Adam. The team is helping here with questions coming through the IM, and thanks for covering the polling here. So just some reminders to the folks here before we end the call. Please visit us at aka.ms security webinars for the forthcoming webinars that we have. Sorry, somebody had to say something. Okay, maybe that was just me. Okay, and in case we missed to answer your question, or if you have additional questions, please visit us on our Azure Security Center forum at aka.ms/ASC community. And I would like to close this webinar by thanking Adam for an awesome presentation. Thank you for that. And thank you to the rest of the team who helped answering the questions. And most of all, I want to thank all of you for being a part of our community and for joining us on these webinars. We hope to see you next time. Goodbye.
Goodbye.